Always a fun time to catch up with the head man of EC Glass Hilltoppers, Jamar Lovelace. You know, I looked at the numbers this week, and EC Glass and GW Danville have never met in the playoffs. You've met in the regular season many times, but never in the playoffs. You know, how important is it that you guys can bring some Lynchburg tradition and get a W? Because honestly, if you look at seeding, you're not supposed to win this game.
Yeah, every time you line up and play, there's an opportunity. And, I've been a part of things before where we were, the so-called favorite and we didn't walk away with the win. And I've been a part of things before where, folks said we had no chance and we came out and got the victory. So again, it's, I think the numbers and the expert opinions and all that is valid. But for us, it's all about being better on one night, and folks can say they're a better team for, 364 days. We got to be the better team for one night. And I think we're going to be up to doing that.
Well, you'll never hear me say I'm an expert at anything. But before we continue on, I'm kind of mentioned in that long-winded speech I did, EC Glass and GW have never met in the playoffs. But as you and I have talked before, it's probably one of the best rivalries in the state or area, at least one of the longest. Does this give the rivalry a little extra oomph, or is that just overblown just because two teams are meeting in the playoffs that have a long tradition?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I said it gives it a little bit of extra, it would mean that it was lacking something necessarily. Right. And I don't think it was. I mean, played each other over 100 times. It's you can't bump into a former EC Glass football player who don't got a story about GW Danville. So we love to compete against those guys. We're gonna get their best shot. They know they're gonna get our best shot as well. And I think the fact that it's the playoffs is gonna add just a little bit more intensity to it. But I don't know if that rivalry could get any higher than it is. We look forward to playing those guys every year. We know they feel the same way.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I said we know they feel the same way. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm going back to the Jamar Lovelace playing days in my brain, and I cannot remember Brookville ever meeting up with, quote-unquote, a rival in the playoffs. I mean, maybe met up with a district team here and there. And I can't remember if you were before or after when they started playing Northside every year.
I was after I was before, actually. I was coaching. Okay. But I was before the Northside rivalry kind of started. I know that was like a kind of 3 or 4 straight year deal. But no, there were no teams that I think that we kind of ran into that we were so familiar with and had played in the regular season consistently. It never seems to work out that way. And even with Northside and Brookville back then, I think it was a little different because we knew that was going to be kind of a late regional matchup compared to a regular season matchup that we know is going to happen every year. So definitely going to be a unique situation. I think it's been a long time since GW's been a 1 seed and had a home game. So we know what type of environment it's going to be, and it's going to be electric.
How is EC Glass different from the first time they played GW Danville?
Man, we're different every day. I feel like almost. Sometimes that's it takes a lot of adjustments throughout the football season, and I feel like some years you have to make more adjustments than not for various reasons, whether it's for injuries, whether it's just attrition and learning what guys can do more. I think some players develop more during the year. I always think as a coach, it's your job to kind of continue to get your players better throughout the year. So I think it's been some guys who have, just simply gotten good enough to get out there and play. Then we've had some other injuries and some other, factors that's kind of come in. But I definitely think we're a different team. Even some of the same guys we have are kind of playing different positions than they are now. And then I think the last piece of that is just when you play a whole Seminole District schedule and you play all the teams that we play, I think you come out of that better. Despite what your record even is, we come out of that a whole lot better. I was having some conversations with some other coaches and, we're talking about Liberty Bedford and, even a team like Liberty who went winless, you're pretty good by the end of the year when you've played and through the Seminole District. So, I think we're ready to represent our district, represent our area, and, we feel pretty battle tested to be up for the challenge against GW.
Talking to Jamar Lovelace, a lot of people don't want to necessarily play a team in the playoffs that they played during the regular season. Obviously, you can't help it because you're still playing in the playoffs. But with that being said, are you more I don't want to say, are you watching the GW game film more, or are you watching the most recent game film more in terms of knowing what EC Glass football is about?
Yeah, it's actually a good mix of both. Been flipping back and forth the whole time, and even watching the first game, it feels like we're such a different team. So, watching us feels like watching another team at some points at that point. And likewise for GW, I think they've won 9 straight games, and even though they were really good at the time when we played them game 3, they're still good, and even got some different guys doing some different things. So, it's a mix of both of kind of seeing what they've done, seeing what they've continued to do. I'm one of those guys who loves to look at scrimmage tape. I think scrimmages kind of show, what your bread and butter kind of is, what your foundational pieces are. So sometimes even before playoff games, I'm going back and trying to find the earliest film I can, hopefully first scrimmage of the year.
Quick word association. If I said a team is staggering going into the playoffs, what does that mean to you?
You said staggering? I'm sorry.
Staggering, yes. No, I didn't speak good English. Staggering, yes.
I would think it means kind of not trending in the right direction.
Is EC Glass staggering going into the playoffs?
I don't really think so. I look at, we had back-to-back kind of ugly losses against JF and against LCA. And then we come back and we beat Heritage, and then we lose a tough one at home to Rustburg. But I definitely don't think we're staggering. And, it's kind of, I think that's high school football is pretty unpredictable, when you're dealing with a bunch of 15 to 18-year-olds and, you never know what exact version of your team you're going to get. I think that you always have an idea of who you are, but, you always know that there could be that one game where you're executing at your highest level. And the good news is we haven't had that yet. So, I think that's always our goal is trying to strive to get to that highest level of execution. And, we got an opportunity, this Friday night, so we're going to be ready to go.
You kind of hit the nail on the head, though. Well, the last time that you guys played a game, you lost.
Yeah.
How much does that have to be gotten out of the memory, or does it? I mean, I don't want to say any loss is a good thing, but you went to overtime. So I mean, it's not like you got pounded.
Yeah, went in overtime, had chances before overtime even started, but again, like for us, we use that word process all the time, and that's what it is. We're sticking to that process every single week. No matter what the previous result was, and we honestly, I think that's been a big part of our culture that we're trying to establish here at Glass is that we want to be process based, not results based, and we just know how dangerous it can be in any sport or in life when you're only looking at what the immediate result is. So for us, it's process based and it's trying to get better every single week and not make the same mistakes twice. And we're still learning, we're still progressing in that regard. But we talk all the time about being process based, more so than results based.
I hate to be negative Nancy here, but EC Glass will have trouble if blank happens on Friday night.
EC Glass will have trouble if we turn the ball over multiple times on Friday night. Turnovers has been our nemesis all year long, and we've had some very untimely ones. Even last week, and kind of different types of turnovers. We've had some times where guys have had good carries and they fumble the ball. We've had some times where guys have made a good pass and a DB made a great play. We've had times where guys have made a terrible pass. We've had times where guys have ran wrong route. I mean, it's just kind of a gauntlet of all different things, and we count all those things as lessons. So for us, it's like, man, we've learned every lesson that we feel like we can learn at this point. Let's not learn it twice, and let's go out here and put those lessons into actions. We say such is life all the time, man. It's just I think that's one of the greatest things about football is it just emulates so many things about life, and that's one of them. Is, no matter how many mistakes you've made, when you got an opportunity in front of you, you flush those past mistakes and you jump on and take it. And that's what we're gonna be ready to do come Friday night.
Besides the results against Heritage, because it's a big rivalry game, I think it's a little comparable, but we're throwing everything from the regular season out now. But in that game against Heritage, I mean, did you guys learn something that can help you going forward? Because, I mean, that's a big game for you guys.
Yeah, it is. I think we learned that, we can be a much better version of ourselves, even in the highest, moments of intensity. We talk all the time about when intensity goes up, focus has to match intensity. We can't let focus go down when intensity is going up. And I think the Heritage game was a good example of that because, that's one of those games where every single play matters and, there's a spirit in the air, every single play. And the fact that we were able to do that and maintain focus even through some negative plays, against a team like Heritage and a setting like that, I know it's going to prepare us for a big time playoff in Danville on Friday.
We talked before the Heritage game, and if I'm not mistaken, you said we've got to capitalize on their mistakes. Well, if you didn't capitalize on their mistakes in special teams, I don't know what you could have done. So talk about how important do you think it was that your team sees, hey, if they're going to give us an advantage, we got to take it.
Yeah, I mean, from that kickoff, and Heritage just came down, punched us in the mouth, and scored in a few plays, and for us to jump and take advantage of that was big. And then for the punt stuff too, we've had some bad snaps this year, so I know how it feels. But for us to recover the ball inside the 5 and put ourselves in position to go score was just exactly what we needed, and it felt good to be on the opposite side of that.
Is there any one thing that keeps you awake or worries you about GWs that they can do on the football field or their talent or so forth?
Well, I mean, they're huge up front. They got scholarship guys, both guard positions. They got a H-back that's one of the biggest, most physical H-backs that I've seen. And I think most importantly, they got a 4-year quarterback. And he's a tough guy to beat. He's seen a lot. He's been through a lot. And I think that he's, very smart with his decision making. And I just know how hard it is to end, a senior quarterback season. And,
right.
We talk all the time about, beating the team in the regular season is different than ending someone's season. So we know that, if we're going to end their season on Friday, it's going to take, some of the most guts and the biggest effort that we've shown all year.
Coach, always appreciate your time and best of luck against GW.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you always.
Jamar Lovelace on the Sports Buffet.